Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's not raining. That's the ongoing thing, Jan. It's just rained every day in Buffalo. Okay, we got a brief pre-show here with Russ, and then we'll get started. We got some news today. So go ahead, Russ.
So let's talk about this Fanatics deal, getting the MLB license and trading cards. I've met with a league about trading cards. Had ideas and such, and have an idea of how it works. I have some friends at Topps actually, and they have 4 more years to go. But I don't think the Fanatics people, and I don't think MLB have really a clue how long it takes to get a well-oiled machine like Topps going. And 4 years isn't enough. But I think the biggest thing that they're going to find out in this era is, hey, it's great, if MLB wants a bigger cut and MLBPA wants a bigger cut, more power to them. What they don't realize is the power of the brand. And Topps is the brand. It will always be the brand. And if they wanted to put out unlicensed cards, they would still sell because they're Topps. Right. And that's the biggest barrier that their Fanatics are going to have in this deal. Plus, they don't have the greatest reputation for making clothing. So these are hurdles that are going to be hard to overcome, I think.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jay.
Mike, go ahead, because I'm probably a little bit more of a collector lately than you are, so I can.
Well, I mean, I made this comparison to Russ yesterday. If you remember, back in the '80s, Fleer and Dunross tried to be the challengers to Topps, and they failed miserably. They had their they put out some cards, and some of them were collector's items. And I don't even think
I was at Fleer headquarters when they closed. I literally
was gonna say Dunross isn't around.
81 was the first year of both of them.
Right, Dunross isn't around anymore either.
Neither. Well, yeah, and Fleer branched out, and Fleer covered all 4. Right, they did all 4, right? So there's some of the stuff from the late '80s from a basketball perspective, right, and then Hoops came out for basketball, right, and now it's Panini's probably the big one. So if you guys read the article that came out by Beckett yesterday, right, they've already had some conversations in terms of NBA licenses. Yeah. They'll probably do NFL. I mean, Upper Deck, well, I wouldn't say has a complete stranglehold on the hockey market. They are the end all and be all, right, and they're coming
out
with
for now.
For now, but so again. If you go back, remember Upper Deck in '89 when they first came out, changed the landscape substantially because it was the first high-end card.
Right.
If you want to read a really good book on them, read the book Card Sharks that goes into kind of the whole history of Upper Deck. Then they branched out to football. Then they did basketball also, and clearly, obviously, did baseball. And now they're doing hockey.
There's all kinds of stuff.
Right. So the problem is as you talked about, Russ. So one, it's the brand. Topps is the end-all and be-all. If those who are following they're doing that Project 70 this year, which has generated a ton of interest and honestly a ton of revenue. Yep. The issue with Fleer and Don was not only were production issues, which they were raft with production issues all over the place, but Upper Deck had some of them also when they first started. So even if they have a lead time, you wonder what's going to be in terms of the product that comes out, the breadth and the depth of it, the interest level. I mean, you've changed the landscape, and now with NFTs being the big hot thing also now, where everybody's going in that direction. I still think you're going to lose a substantive part of the hobby market that existed, that is now with the pandemic exploded beyond belief, especially for some of the vintage stuff, but even some of the new breaks, given all the rookies, more so, I'd say baseball, Bowman Chrome, Bowman Draft, all that stuff. You look at the guys, Guerrero, Soto, every guy that's come out lately, those are the hot products to go get. I don't know whether or not Fantistics is going to have that same kind of landscape and marketplace that exists now for Topps in terms of stuff they come out with.
Is that what it's going to be called? Fantistics?
Oh, sorry, Fanatics. Sorry, it's Fanatics.
No, we don't know what it's going to be called. But
they don't know what it's going to be called. Actually, ironically enough, ProSet has come out with a non-branded thing that has all autographs that they've gotten back into the industry again. So as Russ said, you could have Topps do non-licensed, but I don't know whether or not they don't want to go that direction. But the key part that just came out is they were supposed to have an IPO Topps, which they just literally canceled today. Yeah. And that IPO was supposed to be next week.
Yeah. The one thing Topps can do, and then we'll get into Lundqvist, a real quick thing, if they wanted to, remember, they make a lot of money on candy. People don't realize they make a ton of money. They own more than just Bazooka. So they make a lot of money on that. Now, if they wanted to put unlicensed cards, autographs and otherwise, in Bazooka, people would buy them because the Bazooka cards go back a long ways too. So just a thought.
Yeah, and I just to put a bow on this, it's like the point I was trying to make was Fleer and Dunross tried to challenge Topps and they failed. Now, I don't know whether Fanatics, Russ, did I see right that this deal doesn't start until like
2026?
Yeah. So they'll have enough time to sort of lay the groundwork for maybe some sort of new business model. But maybe. But I honestly, if I was going to bet, I'd bet Topps is still in the end after everything. After the smoke clears, Topps will still be on top. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, there was some talk about, I think if I read correctly, they may have gone back to Topps to try to match or top the offer, but the offer, I guess, was so substantial, if I read correctly, that they probably couldn't go back, given, I mean, part of the reason probably why they were doing an IPO is you look at the valuation between Fanatics and between Topps, it's about 15 times from a valuation perspective, the value of Fanatics right now compared to Topps.
Great. And we'll just see a bunch of bad commercials in between innings or in between periods like we see right now. Thank you.
Status quo, Michael.
Yeah. But if you want to
with every jersey, get a card.
But if you want to advertise with us, be my guest.
There you go.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, August 20th, 2021.
I'm Jan Levine.
Anthony Mingione.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Well, it's a momentous day in terms of a player who, like I said, we've talked about Henrik Lundqvist before. I believe he's a Hall of Famer. I think he will be a Hall of Famer, even though he didn't win a Stanley Cup. But Russ, I can't rip on Henrik Lundqvist and his career. And today he announced his retirement. You and Jan will talk more about how great of a goaltender he is. But you started off.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave meat on the bone for Jan. What I'll say is I'll give some inside stuff. So like in 2009, when we were working on 100 Ranger Greats, and I was working on it with Adam Rader and John Halligan, who was the PR director for the Rangers for many years, worked with NHL.com, had an office there. We still put Lundqvist in the book. Now, we started that book in printed September 2009. And so we ranked him 90th. We put him in there. We said, we've only seen 4 years, but you know what? We're good with this guy. He's going to be somewhere in their top 100. Well, of course, now he'd be like really high, probably top 5, but I'm not committing to it because in case I redo the book. But going then to 2010, we, in our other book, 100 Things Ranger Fans Should Know or Do Before They Die, the 2010 game, which Anthony was probably at with me. No, you weren't there for the shootout game. So I was
there. You and I were there. We were at the Stadium Series game against the Devils.
Yeah,
that was my
I'll let you talk about that. But we were I was in the locker room after that game where basically John Tortorella had Henrik Lundqvist on a bad knee, sit back and have a game go into overtime. Actually have the game go into shootout from overtime and lose that game. That was the most down I ever saw Lundqvist in his career, and he still faced the media. He still was open and honest, and that's really the hallmark of this guy. I have a video that I put up on Instagram and Twitter. There's a link from the game in Pittsburgh, 2014. Yeah, second round, where he beat him in a Game 7. That was like his 5th Game 7 win in a row. It's like an NHL record. And after that game, he was like, that was a very big high point in his career because, he's beaten Crosby and Malkin in their own building. They advanced. We know what happens. I covered a couple of those games in the Cup at the Garden. But the idea was they don't even get to the Garden if they don't win that game. And even Mike Lang, after that game, we were all talking about it. And he was just like, that's one of the finest performances I've ever seen from a goalie coming in here, especially winner take all against this team. And that team was a good team. So there were a lot of high points. People want to maybe point out the negative with Lundqvist. I don't really think there's any. And the guy was a warrior.
Jan, one thing just statistically that I just noticed looking at his record here, never one season under 900 save percentage. Even at the end of his career when he was, his goals against went over 3, still had 905, 907, but in the middle of his career, he was a 920 plus save percentage.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So 7 years in a row, 920 and above. 1 year is a 930. Larry Brooks wrote this, and I think this just kind of summarizes, and this is what Russ talked about, right? Lundqvist played in 8 Game 7s, going 6-2 with a 1.11 goals against average and a 961 save percentage, never allowing more than 2 goals in any of those shutdown matches. He and the Rangers won an astonishing 15-4 in elimination games from 2012 to 2015, right? So if you look back, he was the backbone of this team. He was the reason why this team made it to 3 Eastern Conference Finals and a Stanley Cup final from 2012 to 2015. They probably were a better team in 2012 in New Jersey, just got worn down because they went to so many Game 7s because they couldn't put teams away. In 2014, as you mentioned, the 3-1 comeback against Pittsburgh, the win against Montreal to make it to the finals. Then you look also in terms of the series against LA, losing 3 overtime games, including a pair of double overtime games. And as Anthony can attest to, lovely AV with his shell of a defense in the third period and never knowing how to play with a lead was the reason. 2015, they lose to Tampa at home. It was basically a 0-0 game going into the third period of Game 7. Yeah. A series where 4 Ranger defensemen were hurt. Their top 4 were all hurt, including guys up front also. They lost Matt Zuccarello. If Zuc had been healthy, they would have had a shot at winning. I mean, Lundqvist was brilliant. I mean, there's no way to describe it. It's, gold medal in the Olympics with Sweden. In my opinion, a no doubt first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't know how anybody can even question it. I mean, Luongo also should probably be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, the best tweet I saw from Strombone was maybe we can do a thing, 2 goats, no cups as a podcast was what he was talking about, calling it, which I thought was great. I mean, look, Lundqvist was part of the fabric of New York. Whether or not he ends up being in an ambassador role down the road, you would expect it. He was the face of the franchise. He was, to a certain extent, for a period of time, the face of the NHL, represented the league with class, represented the team with class, represented New York with class. I mean, he deserves, and the Rangers have already announced they are raising his jersey to the banners, to the rafters this year, which is well-deserved. We hoped it was going to happen. I mean, look, Lundqvist was elite goalie. You look about the transition of goalies, right? There always is debate, and Russ can talk about it for his books down the road. Is it Richter or is it Lundqvist, right? Richter has the cup. Lundqvist, in my opinion, has the longevity. In my opinion, was a better overall goalie. Just doesn't have the cup for no fault of his own. But what I wrote in the article is, because unfortunately of the heart ailment and the inflammation, he will spend his entire career only having donned the red, white, and blue of the Rangers.
And just Anthony, I want to get your perspective as somebody who watched Lundqvist as as a reporter who covers a team who opposed Lundqvist. But Russ, you made it the comparison before. It was like Jackie Robinson getting traded to the Giants and never playing a game for them. I almost, I didn't wish the heart ailment and the end of his career. No. But it's almost perfect that he never plays anywhere else other than the Rangers.
It is. I mean, Richter was lucky that it happened, although there were moments the Predators claimed him and it didn't happen. And Jockerman never got that chance. And so, no, it's great for Lundqvist. Another big moment was for the Winter Classic. He stoned Danny Briere on a penalty shot.
Let's put the word questionable before the word penalty shot, please.
Whatever. Still, a penalty shot in the Winter Classic, the whole ballpark watching you, that was pretty good.
I was at the game. I can still remember the fist in the glove pump after the blocker with his stick when he made the save. So,
yeah.
So Anthony, I mean, okay, I from afar, because the Leafs didn't play the Rangers that much, and honestly, Lundqvist never did well against Toronto. It was one of the few teams he didn't seem to have their number. But as somebody who covered the Flyers, who witnessed Lundqvist on many occasions, I mean, this is a great goaltender. I don't think there's any doubt he's a Hall of Famer.
No, and again, the only flimsy argument anybody is going to say is that he did. If you're going to say he never won a Stanley Cup,
right?
He literally, I felt he almost just about single-handedly willed that team to that Rangers team to the final. Any lesser goalie, they might have come up short of the final. It's a good team, absolutely. But Lundqvist was the one that made them a legitimate, just the contender that they were, and he held down the fort incredibly well. My thing is that watching him from afar, or not afar, I wouldn't say afar, obviously up close in this case, is that, and then I tweeted this earlier, the mark of true greats is their ability to instill doubt in the opposing team through dominant play. That, to me, is what Henrik Lundqvist used to do to the Philadelphia Flyers on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
And I got to see it many times. You could see the body language on the players.
Yeah.
If he's on his horse, if he's stopping everything, if his lateral movement from post to post is at hyper speed and you just can't, and there's just no way to beat him, you physically, from atop the arena, from the atop the Wells Fargo Center, you could see the body language. coach going, we are in for a long night because this is what he did. This is why he earned, in my mind, this is why the moniker, the King, is so incredibly well earned by Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah.
It was Brodeur. It was honestly, I'm sorry to interrupt, Russ, but
it's fine.
It was the same sort of body language that, when the Flyers struggled against Martin Brodeur.
Yeah.
Same thing with it was the same thing with Lundqvist. He was that goalie of that era that they just they had difficult times cracking at certain critical points of especially throughout the early midway point of the decade.
Well, even the Brodeur thing, I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, Brodeur, back in the in the Eastern Conference Finals, like that's a massive win for Lundqvist, beating one of the great goalies. He again, when you talk about Lundqvist only winning one Vezina, he had to go up against Brodeur. He had the goaltending, the breadth of goaltending in his era didn't allow a lot of goalies to win 3 or 4 Vezinas. It just didn't. There were a lot of good ones, and so if you won 2. You were really, really good. I mean, you were great.
And Russ, I think he's the best goalie of the current era. Even with Quick, even with other goalies who may have won during this era. They'll point to Quick, and listen, Quick deserves his accolades. Absolutely.
And Quick. And Quick's going to be a Hall of Famer as well.
Exactly.
This is the funny thing, and I just off the top of my head, it's like, okay, he didn't win a Stanley Cup. There is a group of goaltenders now who didn't win a Stanley Cup who I think are better than a group of 4 goaltenders who won 2 Stanley Cups. Cujo, who I think should be a Hall of Famer, but there are people who don't because he had a lot of losses. But he was with a lot of bad teams too. But he did great in the playoffs with Toronto and Edmonton especially. Cujo, Luongo, and Henrik Lundqvist all did not win a Stanley Cup. Barrasso, who I think should be a Hall of Famer, but we know the reason why. Mike Vernon, Chris Osgood, and Corey and Crawford. None of them are going to be Hall of Famers, and the 3 who didn't win are probably Hall of Famers.
Which is ultimately why why I think the whole idea of a player's Hall of Fame worthiness. Yeah. If you're going to base it solely off of a Stanley Cup ring,
you would hope his gold medal.
I think exactly. If he hadn't, maybe again, you might have a little.
And also World Championships. Didn't he win one also?
And World Championship.
Yeah, when he got tackled by Nylander.
Nylander took him out.
Yeah, he took him out.
He did.
He pretty much did.
He did. That's the only person.
It was a flying tackle.
It's the only person that William Nylander has ever taken out in a game ever.
And I might also add Antti Niemi won a Stanley Cup too.
The only thing Henrik Lundqvist did.
I got to see that, by the way.
The only thing Henrik Lundqvist didn't give Ranger fans.
Ward had, but here's the thing about Ward. But here, Niemi was okay holding down the fort with a dominant defense in front of him. Right. Ward was legit that first year.
But I'm just saying in terms of guys who won cups versus ones who didn't.
And remember, Martin Gerber had to step in on 2 occasions in the Buffalo series and the Montreal series for Ward because Ward was a rookie at that point. So,
I was going to say the only thing Lundqvist didn't give Ranger fans was, a moment with Joel being a Ranger. That's about it.
So, okay, is he the best Ranger goalie of all time?
Yes, it's not even close.
I'd said to Rod, the argument is Richter versus Lundqvist, and the swing factor for a lot of people is the gold medal, but also the win in the World Cup by Richter as well when he was brilliant in that series against Canada. The flip side is
Richter by saying that
Lundqvist has a gold medal and Lundqvist has the world championships, right? And I just think just longevity and playing at an elite level, I would say there's no question that Lundqvist should have the edge over Richter. It depends on how much you rate a cup.
With a lesser defense.
Much lesser defense.
Yeah, and just remember, because Jacques Plante played for the Rangers, so did Gumpwers.
Very briefly, though.
But they did not have great years when they were with the Rangers. So they were great goaltenders and maybe greater than Lundqvist. But Lundqvist
was weird though. You know what's funny? If you look him up, if you can't find a picture of him without a towel on his head, and I finally had gotten the answer to that, and that's because this guy apparently was always cold. So the minute he was off the ice, he put like a towel on his head to try and stay warm. And it's funny because I remember seeing a lot of pictures. Like at MSG, they let me into their archives, and I was looking through pictures, and I kept seeing Jacques Plante with like these towels on his head at practice. It's funny.
Weird. Okay. Jan, if you can stay around, great. If you can't, that's fine. But I wanted to talk about this because the note came out last night. Katie Strang and a number of other reporters reported about the Arizona Coyotes and the city of Glendale.
Gila Arena.
Yeah, Gila. I know. I've actually been to Gila. It's not a bad building. It's actually a pretty decent building, but apparently the Coyotes and the city of Glendale were negotiating on a new lease. The city of Glendale essentially pulled out. Now after this season, they're without a home. Now some people think this is a negotiating ploy on the part of.
I'm sure it is, Michael. I think it is, but we are now reaching the point of
no return. It's like
exactly. We're getting to that point. I'm not ready to say that they're completely out. I mean, I know some people were immediately jumping the gun and saying, "Oh, they're out. I will say that the pendulum is swinging in that direction for sure.
Well, I will say this: I laughed when I saw the Gary Bettman quote that he said they'll be looking around the Phoenix area. Like, exactly where, Gary? I know
how many times have they walked around? They've already bounced around the Phoenix area multiple times already.
Here we go. They explored at one point Scottsdale, but Scottsdale, the property values there. I mean, that's where all the rich people in the Phoenix area live. I know some people who lived there. That the real estate is unbelievable there. That didn't pan out. They were talking about doing something with with Arizona State University. That didn't pan out. They were talking about building their own building in downtown Phoenix along with the Suns. That didn't pan out. Nothing has panned out. How many friggin' times do we have to go down this goddamn road in Arizona? It's ridiculous.
And my whole thing is with the NHL is that if you really wanted, I know they wanted a Southwest outpost. I completely understand that. You now have Vegas as your Southwest outpost. I mean, granted, it's a little further west, but you basically have a successful organization there. I think that would free up the National Hockey League here to say, okay, if we need to solvency here, you can make a move elsewhere.
What they're calling the Arizona Veterans Memorial Coliseum, basically where they used to play and where the Suns used to play, seats about 14,008, whatever, and that's where they put the Roadrunners. That place is not up to NHL quality. No. Remember, there's a whole standard now. It's not like the Roadrunners got a new rink.
I think that was it used to be called the America West, but it
was America West Arena.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's not up to, it'll be like going to play in the Calgary Corral again. It would be that's not happening.
What are they going to do? They're going to play in. I know. I saw someone say, "Well, there's like 40 rinks around Arizona." Yes, that's fine, but that's like practice rinks. These are like NHL practice rinks.
Yeah, no,
they're not real rinks.
This is the deal. And as soon as, and I'm sure I'm not the only person. As soon as we heard this, the two places that came up were Quebec City and Houston. And Houston makes all the sense in the world. I don't know about like ownership because I don't know if this ownership would be willing to transfer to Houston or if the NHL would sign off on them transferring to Houston. But Houston makes a lot of sense because of the national rivalry with Dallas. They're in the Central Division, so geographically it would make sense. And honestly, I looked at the roster. This is the team that has the most unrestricted free agents in the NHL next year in terms of they have a bunch of expiring contracts. If you're going to make a transfer of an organization, this would be the year to do it. They have 1 year left on the lease. And then after this, you have all these guys basically as free agents. You have maybe 10 guys on the roster who have extended contracts. You're not going to get a really bit of pushback from the players because half of the players are not even on the roster anymore. So I don't know. I mean,
it's like it would be almost like a pseudo expansion situation.
It would.
Almost.
I could answer to Kansas City too because Anthony mentioned them. I had a friend who moved from Kansas City.
I did. Oh, you're talking about Anthony in
the chat room.
I'm sorry.
I had a friend who moved from Kansas City to here, and he told me that yes, there's some hockey fans there, and they just set a record for their ECHL team that plays in that rink, 5,800 fans. So 5,800 is a far cry from what you want to be an NHL crowd to be able to make money. And so,
and how old is that arena now, too?
No, they built it. I thought they built a new.
No, they built it, but it's still now. But it's not as new. It's not
brand. It's not new.
It's not brand spanking new like it was.
I don't know whether the Houston building where the Rockets play is dual capable. I would assume it is
dual capable.
It is, yeah. And I remember we talked a little bit about whether or not Tillman Fertitta was going to, who's I believe the Rockets owner, whether or not he was going to have it. I think he had interest. The question is whether or not they had the financial wherewithal to be able to handle two teams. I mean, I don't know. This is not like Josh Harris hedge fund territory here. But
all right. So the interesting thing with Kansas City is they do have a new one that is arena football and basketball. But again, what they had told me about the Houston one was they could easily, like, that one was made for retrofitting for hockey. Like, they already had it worked out. Mm-hmm. This one could be the same thing as the Barclays Center. It probably would be. And again, trying to retrofit that when you had no plans for hockey ever.
Yeah, the sight lines might be terrible, and ideally you don't want to go into that kind of situation, and that's why you would think Quebec City might have it. But then say it's Quebec City, you're going to have pushback from the players. You're going to have pushback from the league now that they're geographically 16 teams in the West, 16 teams in the East. A team in the East is going to have to go to the West, and good luck trying to get
Columbus. And that's the reason why I don't think – and that's another reason why I think Bettman really wants to try to figure things out and keep it in Arizona, because I think they see it – they just see the situation, any other situation is not be – otherwise, I think if there was sort of a better spot –
that's why Houston. Yeah, that's why Houston makes.
You have to have an ownership group that is willing to be able to take that on. And I think if they had that, there would be. You would probably be. Gary would not be quite as vocal about trying to keep them in Arizona.
And Kansas City really is a football town. Even the Royals don't draw that well anymore. Not like they used to. The year they won, yes, they had some great attendance then. But on a whole, the Royals don't even draw that well. Like, it's not the best place for hockey. It's just
but I definitely, again, getting back to Quebec City, I just don't see it. I think I think the league bit their tongue when Atlanta went to Winnipeg. Now, somebody might turn around and say, well, what about maybe give Atlanta another go? I probably wouldn't do it. It's already been tried twice.
Honestly, if you're gonna go down that road, I would go more to Portland, because Portland has a hockey history with the Winterhawks. You've got Seattle in there. You've got Vancouver.
But they don't have a bona fide place to play.
Well, no. What about where the Trailblazers play?
Rose Garden, I don't know is necessarily completely. I got to check on Rose Garden
to be retrofitted or anything.
And once again, you have to have an ownership group that is ready to do it. That's the thing. That's what Bettman's looking for here. No. We're automatically trying to figure out, this place will be great or that place will be great. Do they have an ownership group ready to do it?
Well, no. I think for this particular instance, when Gary gets done looking around Phoenix and they have to make a last-minute decision, I think the owner is going to still be the owner, and it's going to move, and then it's up to the owner to sell that team if he sells it. That's the commissioner doesn't have to do that.
And the only place that has ownership and a building in place is probably the place that they least want to move to, and that's Quebec City, because whoever
it's a great rink.
It's a great rink, and they have, I think it's a Canadian, a Quebec cable company that owns the building. Mm-hmm. That's multi-billion, so they could afford the team. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, every time we think that this is going to finally be the last straw, there's some 11th hour bull crap, and then they end up staying there. And it's a blight on the league. This team, the way they're operating right now is a blight on the league. They're a bigger joke than what the Buffalo Sabres have been the last couple of years. And, trading for every expiring contract in the book, having a general manager that with questionable practices, all these things contribute to the disrepute of this franchise. And I don't know.
Look, we get it. I get that there is a fan base there, but it's not a sustainable fan base for what you need to keep a team afloat. It's not. It was the
I'll
same
give
thing in Hartford. It's
Anthony-
the same thing in a lot of these cities.
Anthony brought up another potential place, and I'd have to look into it a little bit more. Salt Lake City. We'd have to see again. You have continuous growth. There is continuous growth in terms of things going on out in Utah.
The Utah
Population, I think, is actually. I got to check what the most recent.
over 1 million.
Census. It's over 1 million, and I think it's had the sharpest spike.
Yes.
In terms of population growth.
A lot of California exodus in Utah.
Yes. Yeah. And the question again would be, you have one, you already, there is an arena there. The question is whether or not Vivint Arena, I think is what it's called there, would be. Yeah, look it up and see.
Maverick Center.
You sure about that? I thought it was.
No, that's their hockey rink. That's where the Grizzlies
right.
play.
But if they would move to Salt Lake, they would be looking for
playing in the.
They would want to play in the same arena as the Jazz.
I know, but if they can do it, if not, then you're only looking at the hockey arena. Again, not all these arenas can be retrofitted.
I'm aware of that. That's why I'm asking you to look. Thank you, Russell.
I am looking.
Stop it, boys! Stop it!
This is what we do.
No, but Milwaukee has been mentioned, and they've had pretty decent success with the Admirals, but again,
they're in a brand, and their building is brand spanking new. It's gorgeous, but I'm pretty sure
it's basketball.
It's very basketball designed.
Yeah.
Their arena is very basketball.
That would make a ton of sense in terms of rivalry, but in between, I mean, the question is whether Chicago would have territorial rights over Milwaukee, since they're an hour and 45 minutes away from Chicago. I mean, do they draw enough people from southern Wisconsin into the United Center to make them have a problem? I don't know. I mean,
I see the Vivint as being a problem, Ant, because I'm looking at it, an empty shot of it, and the basketball part of it is pushed into like the right corner. And that's the same problem the Barclays had.
Okay, that was my question in terms of the overall.
So what you're saying is there's no room for the Honda CRV.
No, but I'm just saying that when you retrofit it, it has to be like you've got to have it more centered. And I don't think Salt Lake ever thought they would even have a chance at a hockey team, so they probably never thought about it.
Right?
Probably not. No,
so that will unfold, I'm sure.
It is big enough, though.
When we get Kevin back, Kevin is on vacation. When we get him back, I'm sure that'll be one of the subjects that we'll discuss. Now, in the realm of retirement, sticking with that, on the heels of Henrik Lundqvist.
You're not retiring, Mike, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'll retire when I'm in my casket. No, Rick Jeanneret, the longtime Buffalo Sabres play-by-play man, announced today that he will retire after this season. Now, last year he's been splitting duties with Dan Dunleavy for I think 4 or 5 or 6 years. Dan has been doing like the long West Coast trips and some trips up to Toronto and a few other ones. But in general, Jeanneret, who's in his 70s, was still doing a pretty heavy workload, and he's going to continue that this season. But this will be his last 51 years at the mic with the Sabres. And like I said on Twitter, I grew up listening to Jeanneret. I've met him a couple times in the press box, which is a thrill, because when you meet somebody that you've listened to on the radio, it's always great. He's a great guy too. And, just all I have to say here is, and like I said, we've been listening and watching games for many years, that there's a generation of hockey announcers that now are starting to retire, like Doc Emmerich, and now Rick Jeanneret, and Mike Lang in Pittsburgh, who just announced his retirement.
Pat Foley in Chicago. I'm trying to remember.
He hasn't retired yet, but he's up.
He's approaching the. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. So, Russ, we're lucky we got to hear these guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain smoothness about Jeanneret, and they like an understated emphasis that he has, rather than some of the guys now who just tend to
could he explode?
Yeah, he can explode, no question. But I feel like he picked the right times for it.
Right.
And, like now it's like every goal, every minute, it's, everybody wants to have you jump out of your seat. And I don't know. I'm not the guy that likes to listen to that, but I like Generette because there's a certain smoothness and elegance to the way he calls a game.
Yeah, and okay.
And for Buffalo to have something elegant, I mean, that's good.
Anchor bar. No, but
I had one today.
The thing is like, and as people who were in Buffalo and heard him daily, he was great when a fight happened. If you go, there was the, like Tony in the chat, Mayday and Fa La 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 Fontaine, and there's Top Shelf where Mama hides the cookies. All those things are great, and I love them too. But when there was a fight, and if you want to, look up the Garth Snow, Steve Shields fight, which I think was game 1 of the playoff series between Philly.
How Garth could throw bombs with those cardboard things underneath his
or when our buddy Matt Barnaby jumped up on the ice and attacked Garth Snow because Garth Snow was jabbing him in the chest, and he was.
I'm sure Matt had a good reason. I could always talk. We could always invite him on the show.
There's always a good reason for Matt to lose.
Yes, there's always a good reason. There's always a good reason to beat Garth Snow, especially if you're an Islanders fan. But no, or for Funky says, that we're going back to where Jimmy Hoffa lives after they won that quadruple overtime Dave Hannon goal against New Jersey. I think it was 95 or 95. But he was best when there was a fight. Look it up look up the Bruins Sabres brawl in the playoffs in '89. Look at when Rob Ray beats up Claude Lemieux. He is the best at that. He's over the top. It's exciting, but you get more excited about listening to Generette yell and scream about it than the actual fight.
I still harken back in the early 2000s, whatever it was, 06, 07, whatever year the Flyers met the Sabres. I went up there and I covered a game. And found out then that the Buffalo transit system sucks, but that's another topic for another day. But I did.
You have a transit system?
Yeah, Amtrak. I Amtraked it up, and that game that I went to was incredible because after the game, Ken Hitchcock was really feuding with Lindy Ruff the whole series. But
they love each other.
That particular game, they really hated each other, and Hitchcock was talking, and it looked like he was done. But I've always learned you wait until the guy walks out to pick up your recorder. And he looked like he was done. Everybody went to go pick up their recorders. There was maybe mine and maybe 1 or 2 others left on the table. And he went, oh, and by the way, Lindy can go F himself. And I had that. I still have that soundbite. And, I kind of wonder. I would wonder what Generette said about that, like the next game, because the heat was there, man. Those 2 guys hated each other.
Oh, yeah. Now and okay, and Funky's talking about this in the chat. I have no problem with Homer broadcasters. It's like now
it depends how it's done.
Right. Now this is the thing. Generette, and he mentions Joe Bowen as well. The calls are similar, but obviously that he's not Joe Bowen is not going to drop Holy Mackinac when the Montreal Canadiens score. And he says he scores or shoots and scores, but it's not as, not as.
Oh, I get that. That's no problem.
You're forgetting.
What I have a problem with, and this guy's a good announcer too, Anthony, but Dave Mishkin, who does the Tampa Bay broadcast on, I think, TV and radio.
Yeah, former Hershey. Yeah, remember with the Hershey Bears.
Okay, so when Braden Point scores in the playoffs, he's like, Braden Point score! He's like that. He's going. And when like Corey Perry scored for Dallas in the playoffs last year, Corey Perry score. That's it. I mean, that I have a problem with because
you said that though. I mean, if you want to really kind of go, it's if you're going to go for ultimate homer announcers, we're going to obviously be heading into Jack Edwards territory.
Oh,
yeah, like the Edwards.
Oh my God, this happened during the Revolutionary War. Oh my God, it's just like Jack goes on these soliloquies, and it's just like.
Former Bruins was this Benedict Arnold. He drops.
Yeah, the things that I don't like for homer broadcasts, and Edwards is one of them. And I like the guy. I like him. He's a great guy.
It feels like he's. It's like I'm not just calling the game. I'm going to give you a performance.
Yeah. I do feel like it's that too. But what he does, what I don't like is like no penalties ever on the Bruins.
Mm-hmm.
They never do anything wrong.
And Brickley plays again. It's just like it's a comedy act to me. Listening.
And when you play that in a broadcast, I hate it. I used to hate like the White Sox with Hawk Harrelson saying 2-0 good guys. You know, that kind of stuff I don't like because, again, it's like, listen, call the game. You could be, good towards your team. I get it. You're going to talk to those guys, although nowadays they don't. But they used to. And, because it's just the way that's been in the pandemic. And, like, they don't talk to the players.
And you're talking also to a person who absolutely – I love Jim Jackson. Great guy. But, man, when Jim pulls out it, how is that not a penalty?
Right. Yeah.
Tasty cake.
Yeah, he does it. He
and I love Jim. And listen, Jim's listening to Jim. I love you. He does that. It's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
But
I'm not a fan of that.
Yes, but no, I mean, okay. I can't add anything more to that. It's like
the voice. They sometimes do what I would refer to as the voice of they have a voice of the fan moment.
Yes.
And Jack has that. Jim, I think Jackson does a good job for the most part with it, but when we get into the penalty moments, he definitely turns into voice. It sounds like voice of the fan.
I think Sam Rosen has that too.
And again, this is part of what comes with you know your audience. Again, it's also understanding your audience. You know your audience. You know what they like, and you give it to them. And again, there's that part of me is. I get it, and I completely and understand that there is a little bit more performance to this when you're doing it for a team than you are when you're calling it for a national. Right. And that's also where I think a lot of people kind of think one announcer is, if they're so used to listening to that when they watch a national broadcast, against this guy's going to call against my team. How can you say anything there? Well, you've been kind of conditioned.
Yeah.
Well, and then see that's the weird thing because I don't know anybody in their right mind who could say that Doc Emmerich didn't play it right down the middle. I always thought that he was a longtime broadcaster for the Devils, but even when the Devils were like in a Stanley Cup, I didn't think like he was favoring the Devils over the team that they played in the Cup final. To me he seemed like right down the middle. I have to say though there have been some Hockey Night in Canada broadcasters in the past. I mean, Bob Cole is an avowed Leaf fan, and that's why. When you hear broadcasts of him in the early 2000s during Leaf playoff games in the conference final, or back in 1993 when they played the Kings, he's clearly rooting for Wendell Clark and Doug Gilmour, but he's a professional enough that. He sells it. But there have been announcers over, I'd say, the last 10 to 15 years that don't play it down the middle during national broadcasts. And I won't mention names, but I think everybody knows who I'm talking about. Yep. Somebody in the chat just got the name. There you go. Okay. We had a signing today. One of the few restricted free agents. I believe he was arbitration eligible, so this was a settlement before going to the arbitrator, and that was Nikita Zadorov, who had been traded from the Blackhawks to Calgary. He signs a 1-year deal at $3.75 million, and I think it was you, Anthony, that mentioned Sanheim after that because Sanheim one of the only.
He's it. Sanheim is the remaining RFA that's arbitration that is, and again. This is team arbitration in this circumstance when it comes to Sanheim. So, we've talked about this at length, and again, with Zadorov going to be, basically walked in his 1-year deal straight to UFA status.
Yeah,
it's not quite the same as Sanheim, but again, it's fairly close in this circumstance. But I don't see
closer than Flyers fans want to admit, and I think that's
and three. Well, again, the number I think is probably pretty close to what will likely be the result here. I think when it comes to Travis, I think it was 375 was the final number.
Yeah.
So that pretty much I would anticipate. Yeah, and I think what Philly probably would look to do is they probably would like to. They want to get it probably to 2 years in this case.
Well, did they announce the parameters? Did they announce the team and the?
In terms of the situation?
In terms of Sanheim, did they announce any like the?
No.
Okay.
It's all we know right now is it's a team selected arbitration, and that it's August. It would be the arb would happen on August 26th.
Okay.
So
the only thing I want to say about this one is, if the Flyers try and do too much in this, like you said, Ant, with that second year or whatever, the agent will pay the Flyers back on the back end, and that's going to be the question of whether a next deal happens. Like if Sanheim has, let's say he does 2 years and he has 2 amazing years, it will be that much harder for the Flyers to sign him up.
Yeah. And you have to bank that with also the consideration of UFA statuses coming up. You have Sean Couturier is about to make some serious money.
That's a big deal.
It's a massive bit of change that he's going to make. They've had him on a discount for a long time.
Well, let me ask you this, because we know that Giroux's contract is up after this year. He was making 8. We know that Voracek was making over 8. They were successful in getting, clearing him out and bringing back a lower salary in Atkinson.
Yeah, that helps.
That helps, but I mean the overall money, because Atkinson had an extra year, is about the same, but so the term was longer, but the cap hit was lower. What are we thinking here in terms of Couturier? Because are we thinking in the $8.5 million range? I mean, because that's like Ryan Johansson. That's high. You're thinking higher? Okay,
I do, because I think they look. They've had multiple seasons of him.
He's a Selke winner. Like
he's a he has hardware. You add into the mix. I just don't see him making. He's their number 1 center. And again, he is their top. At the end of the day, he is their top player.
He is.
I don't think there's any question at this point right now that Sean Couturier.
He played. I want to say he played half the season this year hurt.
He does.
Really gutted it out.
And he is. And some might turn around and say, well, that's another reason not to, because he's hurt. He gets dinged here and there. But I'm like, but you got him for. Yeah, if you're asking me, my number on him probably starts at 9. Yeah. I really do on Sean, because of how important of a player, and I'm being conservative. I think at 9, I am, but I think again with Giroux, we want to see, obviously with him going to UFA, he's not going to want to drop too far down, but he has to know that the next deal probably is not going to be at the current figure.
They gave him like 7 for 3 years. He might do it to stay in the area. I do.
Well, here's the thing. Couturier is 28, turning 29 on December 7th. So going into free agency, he's a 29-year-old. What you're probably going to see here is the term. I think the Flyers at most want to go 6 years, because he's in his prime now, and you're talking about paying him through to the age of 35. But what they might have to do is give him the 8-year deal to spread out the
and the 8-year deal is also, we now know that the 8-year deal has a stamp on it.
Yes.
We know that you're basically saying this is our franchise guy. Now the question is whether or not the Flyers view him as such to lead them to a cup. And I think he can. I'd say, but the support around him is important. He needs to have the right players to play off of, but he also brings up. We all know how much he brings up the level of the players who play alongside him. He makes everybody who's on a line with him that much better.
I'll tell you what the Flyers could do here, Ant. They could, if they were able to trade. Let's say Van Riemsdyk gets off to a good start again, and they're able to trade him either this year or after this year, then they could give Van Riemsdyk money.
That's the key. I think in that circumstance, that money, Van Riemsdyk money can go to Giroux. You'll have a bit of a better structure in that point. Maybe another year of relative help for Wade Allison, if you're looking for a bigger winger to be able to play that role for Philadelphia. So in my view is, again, everything here is predicated right now on, if you view Travis Sanheim as a bellwether part of your defense over the next however many years. But again, how you're going to make that all work over time is the issue.
All right. To cap off the show, we're going to continue with our team prospect analysis. And today was the Chicago Blackhawks. And Russ, you selected 2 their top 2 picks from the 2020 draft, Lucas Reichel, 17th overall, has played 2 years in Germany in the Deutsche League, and also played for Germany in the World Junior. He looks like a really good prospect.
Yeah, I like the way he skates. Lucas Reichel's got a heck of a shot. How many points did he get this past year?
I'll pull it up right now. He had 27 points in 38 games with Berlin in the D League.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they maybe won't bring him aboard this year, but I think by next year he'll be ready. I think you're looking at a guy who has he could be. He's definitely top 9 ability, but I think he could be a second liner in this league. I think there's a really good chance that happens, whether or not, depending on who is there still for Chicago and how that's going to work out. But like the shot, like the skating, he has defensive awareness. He's an interesting guy because he can get behind the defense and you don't even know it at times. He's one of those guys that can be kind of stealthy. And he's not going to be a 80-point scorer or anything. He's not like that. But he is a guy that could score at big times in the game and can be a headache for opposing defenses. And that's what I like about him. And I think, where did they get him? 37? Something like that?
17th overall.
17th. Sorry, I was thinking of the other German guy. 17th is, was actually good. Well, it's true, man. I was thinking
I understand. JJ Paterka.
Now I'm not going to remember his name. He was in the second round.
Paterka.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And by the way, he is the nephew of Robert Reichel. So there's a little
bit of a bloodline there.
Yeah, the blood. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think this is a guy who, again, Chicago needs. They don't have a lot of A prospects, and Reichel has a chance to be an A- prospect.
Yeah, but one thing Stan Bowman has been able to do, it's like, okay, he's been able to find guys that, like he picked up the off the scrap heap from I think it was the LA Kings, Kubalik. He got Kubalik for a 5th round pick. He gets Dylan Strome from Arizona after Dylan Strome was considered a bust. Well, he wasn't a number 1 center, but he's a pretty decent number 2 or number 3 center. He seems to be able to find guys at discount prices that have turned out pretty decently. So I give him credit for that. Now, the other one you want to bring up was the second.
Yep. Yes, we'll talk about Drew Comeso in a minute. The guy who he really, I'm telling you, got an amazing deal on is Kurashev, because. Right. This is a kid who was bouncing around a little bit. I interviewed him at the combine, and really nobody was interviewing with him. And he told me his story. And I want to say Larionov is his agent, and he lived with Larionov for a while. Yeah. And that sort of gave him like that extra insight, confidence, because we all saw that Larionov as a coach, he really likes to teach. Like when I got a chance to interview him before the World Juniors, and he really pointed out how much he liked to teach. And I just felt like, that was good for this kid Kurashev, because he was sort of getting overlooked. And now, he probably made it to the NHL faster than anybody thought he would.
And Borgstrom could be another guy like that, too. I mean, I think he sort of got the short shrift in Florida and, change of administrations there. Maybe he turns out for them as well. But the other player was the 2nd round pick in that draft, Drew Comeso, the goalie from Boston University.
Yeah, he had a really good year with BU. He's one of those guys at 6'2". That's, I think, you want to be right around that height these days in the NHL. I think that's important. He was with the NTDP. I saw him play for them. It wasn't all wine and roses. He would have some great games, and he had some games where he would look sort of average. But the one thing he always did was he was always like a solid, steady, positional, go with the flow kind of game guy. He wasn't going to overdo it on anything. So if you have a good structure in front of him, he's a good goalie. And I think, for the Blackhawks to grab him like that was smart, because he already had a little bit of a pedigree. And look, I mean, if you're an American goalie playing in Chicago, they love you, even if even if it turns out you're not that great a goalie, just because you're an American goalie that plays in Chicago, they like that.
A little bit of just a minor bit of breaking news from a few minutes ago. Conor Bonnerman was re-signed by the Flyers, 2 years, $750,000 AAV.
Yeah, and I was just to put a cap.
I still think he could be a fourth liner.
Just to put a cap on that, I mean the Hawks, they bring in
the structure of it. By the way, I'm sorry. It's the structure of the deal looks like it's a 2-way deal this season and a 1-way deal for 22-23.
Okay, they bring in Fleury. They have Lankinen. They have time. Comeso's probably 2 or 3 years away. Probably he needs to play in the American Hockey League before, but he's on a path where he could be their goalie of the future in 2 or 3 years.
I wrote about Comeso, Mike, pre-draft. I'm just pulling this up because I forgot I even did an article on him. And at the time, I thought he would go second round or third. So the fact that they got him where they did probably means that they felt like he was going to go before the third. So I think this was smart. I really do think this was a smart move for them. And if you think about it, with Fleury there now, they don't have, and the other goalie Lankinen, they don't have a lot in the system. So they needed a guy. So this was good that they got the guy. Great show, guys. Just a note for everybody. We'll be doing an Off the Post show on Sunday morning with our special guest, Chris Johnston of Sportsnet. So usually we record around 9:30. It'll be live, but then it'll be on Russ's SoundCloud channel a few minutes after. So and on fall asleep. I'm going to have about 3. I'm going to guess 3 hours.
You'll be caffeinated.
Just stay up and then go to sleep.
Yourself. And again, it'll be on Full Press. It'll be on Full Press's radio app plus Spotify, anywhere you find podcasts. One other thing, today is going to be my last semi-regular appearance on the Buzzcast due to work constraints. So I will be here and there appearing on the Buzzcast, but it'll be a little less frequent, obviously, than during
school holidays. Columbus Day.
Yeah, we know almost immediately we're going to get it. Well, we don't really get Columbus Day anymore.
Oh no! Oh, yeah, that's right.
No. Oh, that day's over now.
Correctness.
I'll be working then. Sorry.
Immaculate Conception. Did you get that one?
We don't get off for St. Patrick's Day, so the Irish feel like they got evened up on us now. So
yes. Okay, so for the departed Jan Levine, for Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.